The fire and the innocent, the sky was burning. Flames poured from the clouds like fire rain. The planet Thalara had become a battlefield. Human ships and alien war machines fought above the blackened land, dropping bombs and energy blasts that shook the mountains. Sergeant Daniel Reeve, a human soldier, ran through the smoke, his uniform covered in dirt and blood. His team was gone, either killed or scattered during the last ambush. He had one mission left: evacuate. But as he reached the destroyed ruins of a village, he heard something, a cry, very soft, weak, not human. Daniel stopped. Through the dust, between broken stones and shattered walls, he heard it again, a whimper. His instincts screamed at him to keep running. The evac shuttle wouldn't wait forever. But something pulled at his heart. He moved closer. There, hidden under part of a collapsed roof, was a small alien child. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes glowed dim purple with fear. She was shaking, covered in ash, and had a deep cut on her arm. She couldn't be older than 5. Daniel stared at her. She stared back. For a moment, both sides of the war stood still in their eyes. She was from the enemy race, the Xerians. Daniel raised his rifle slightly, then lowered it. He knelt down and slowly reached out. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." The girl didn't move. Her lips trembled and a tear ran down her dirty cheek. Daniel removed his helmet so she could see his face. He gave a small smile. "I'm not like the others." She blinked, then crawled forward slowly, as if testing his words. When she reached him, she collapsed in his arms. Daniel looked around. The bombing had started again in the distance. The ground shook. The sky flashed red and orange. He had to move. With the child in his arms, he ran, faster than before. She was light, but weak. She didn't speak, didn't cry anymore, just held onto his chest with tiny fingers. Behind him, enemy patrol drones flew overhead. If they spotted him carrying one of their own, maybe they wouldn't shoot. But if human troops saw him now, they'd call him a traitor. He didn't care. He found a half-destroyed cargo container and slid inside. It was quiet and dark. He wrapped the child in his emergency cloak and gave her a water pouch. She drank slowly. "Do you have a name?" he asked. She didn't reply, just looked at him with big eyes. "Okay, I'll call you Starlet," he said gently. "You fell from the sky, right?" She tilted her head slightly. A small, soft sound came from her throat. Maybe a laugh. Maybe just a breath. Daniel smiled. Then he checked his comm link. No signal. They were deep inside enemy territory, and the evac window was closing. "We'll make it," he whispered. "I'll get you out. I promise." Suddenly, a loud click echoed from above. Daniel froze. Someone was walking near the container. Enemy. Troops? He gently covered the child's mouth and kept still. 2 heavy footsteps passed. Then silence. Minutes ticked by. When it was finally safe, Daniel looked down. The girl had fallen asleep in his arms, clutching his dog tag like it was her only treasure. Outside, the war continued. But in that cold metal box, one human and one alien shared warmth and fear, and something more. Far away, across the battlefield, inside a black alien warship, a tall figure watched a hologram screen. Lady Viraya, the supreme commander of the Xerian forces, narrowed her eyes as she saw the human soldier cradling her daughter. Her advisors waited for her command, but she said only one word: "Find him." The sun never truly rose on Thalara. Instead, the sky glowed with a dull red light from the burning fields below. The war had blackened everything. But inside an old shipping crate, far from the battle lines, something strange was happening. Human soldier and an alien child were breathing the same air, and they were alive. Daniel Reeve hadn't slept all night. The little girl, now nicknamed Starlet, lay curled beside him. Her soft breathing was steady, Her wounds had stopped bleeding, but her body still trembled sometimes. Daniel had wrapped her in his cloak and given her the last of his rations. He wasn't sure why he was still doing this. She was the enemy. But every time she looked at him with those glowing purple eyes, he remembered something. His sister, she used to cling to him the same way when their world was on fire. Daniel sighed and turned on his field scanner, hoping for any signal. Nothing. Suddenly, click. He froze. A small red light blinked outside. A Xerian surveillance drone hovered near the crate, its scanners flashing. Daniel instinctively pulled Starlet close and grabbed his rifle, but didn't fire. The drone stopped. Its camera lens zoomed in and locked on him. It had seen the girl. Starlet opened her eyes. She looked at the drone calmly, then raised her tiny hand in a gesture Daniel didn't recognize. A slow wave. The drone blinked, then flew off without sounding an alarm. Daniel stared at the child. What was that? She said nothing, but a very small smile touched her lips. Far away in the command chamber of the Xerian flagship, a new transmission appeared on the central screen. The drone had sent back footage, clear, close up. It showed the human soldier holding the commander's daughter, protecting her. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Officers whispered in shock. Lady Varela stood still, her long silver armor reflecting the red lights. Her face was unreadable. He's hiding her, one of the generals growled. We must strike that area now. No, Varela said calmly, but my lady, I saw everything. He fed her. He gave her water. He covered her with his own cloak. He did not harm her. He did not even leave her. But he is human. Another voice snapped. Varela turned, her eyes glowing brighter. He is more than human now. He has earned our attention. She turned to her tech officer. Track him. Do not engage. Do not harm him. Bring them both back. Alive. Back in the dead zone, Daniel decided it was time to move. He didn't know how long this hiding spot would stay safe. With the girl wrapped securely to his back in his cloak, he crept across the rubble, careful to stay under cover. They passed abandoned tanks, scorched alien trees, and bodies. Too many bodies. Every time he heard movement, he ducked and held his breath. Once a human patrol passed just meters away. One soldier glanced toward him, then looked away. Was that mercy or a missed shot? Night came again. They found shelter in a broken school building. Inside, colorful alien letters were still scribbled across the walls. Broken toys were scattered on the floor. It looked like no one had left. It looked like everyone had vanished. Starlet sat on an old chair and touched a small metal cube. It lit up and played a faint lullaby in a language Daniel didn't understand. Her eyes watered. He sat beside her. You used to come here? She nodded slowly. Daniel reached into his pack and pulled out the last thing he had, a protein bar. He broke it in half and gave her the bigger piece. It's not much, but it'll help. She looked at it, then looked at him, and for the first time she spoke. One word, soft, strange. He couldn't understand it. What did you say? She pointed to herself. Sorry. Sorry? Is that your name? She nodded. Daniel smiled. All right, sorry. Let's stay alive together. She touched his chest, his name tag, and whispered, Donnell. Back in the flagship, Varela stood alone on her balcony, the wind of space blowing her silver hair. In her hand was a photo crystal, a baby picture of her daughter. Now that child was somewhere with a human who had chosen mercy over orders. The Xerian law was old, very old, but it was clear. Any being who protects a royal child during war is bound by fate, a life debt, a sacred bond. Varela narrowed her eyes. Her voice was low and firm. Prepare the life bond chamber. In the great halls of the Xerian flagship, silence had taken hold. The command room was dark, lit only by holograms and pulsing lights. Officers worked quietly. No one dared to speak unless spoken to. At the center stood Lady Viraya, tall and still, like a statue carved from silver stone. Her silver-blue skin glowed faintly beneath her ceremonial armor. Her sharp royal eyes were locked on a single image, a human soldier holding her daughter. Again and again, the scene played. Daniel rapping, Sari in his cloak, giving her water, whispering to her gently even though he knew she was from the enemy, sleeping beside her protectively in the cold night. Viraya didn't blink. This was no trick, no spy game. This human had saved her child with his own life. Behind her, a trusted elder stepped forward. His voice was cautious. Lady Viraya, the council is uneasy. They say no human can be trusted, not even one who holds the child. Viraya finally turned to face him. Her voice was soft but full of power. Then the council has forgotten our oldest law. The elder lowered his eyes. You speak of the life bond. Viraya nodded once. He protected the royal bloodline. He now carries a part of our legacy. By law, by tradition older than our stars, he belongs to us now. Elsewhere, Daniel woke up to a strange noise. The old school building creaked as wind blew through the broken walls. But this was something different. A low hum. He rose slowly and looked out a shattered window. 3 Xerian scout ships hovered quietly in the distance. Their lights flickered across the ruins like ghostly eyes. He ducked quickly and held Sari close. She was still sleeping, her face calm. But Daniel's heart pounded. Were they searching for her? For him? He grabbed his gear and quietly slipped out the back of the building, keeping to the shadows. He didn't want to risk it, not until he knew their intentions. Back in orbit, Viraya stood in her private chambers. She wasn't wearing armor, now. Just a long robe made of black starlight silk. Her hair was unbound. In front of her was a glowing screen showing every known detail about Daniel Reeve. Human soldier. Rank, sergeant. History, orphaned in childhood, raised in war. Multiple acts of bravery. No family left alive. No crimes. No dishonor. He was, by their standards, noble and alone. Her hand gently hovered over his image. My daughter chose you, she whispered. Even without words, she trusted you. That means something. She looked over her shoulder at a ceremonial table. A thin silver knife lay there beside 2 crystal bands. The ritual of claiming, a sacred act, a choice few ever made. It was not forced. It had to be accepted freely. But it could change everything. Meanwhile, Daniel had found a new shelter. A half-sunken alien transport ship, burned but not destroyed, buried in the ground like a sleeping beast. He climbed inside, sealed the entrance, and checked the scanner again. Still no human signals. Still alone. Sari sat beside him, drawing shapes in the dirt. Stars. Circles. What looked like a moon. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Then looked at him and placed her hand on his chest again. Daniel. Safe. His throat tightened. He had heard many words in his life, but this one, from a child of the enemy, carried more weight than bullets. I'll keep you safe, he whispered, even if it kills me. Far above, Viraya received a transmission. Lady Viraya, the scout pilot, reported, We have tracked him to the south ruins. No harm done to the child. He moves quietly, hides from both sides. Does he know we're watching? She asked. No, my lady. He believes he's alone. Viraya closed her eyes. Good. Then let him come to us by choice. Back in the shipwreck, night fell again. Daniel watched the stars through a broken hull window. He thought of his home, of Earth, of war, of why he even joined the army. He had never believed in fate, until now. As Sari leaned against him, he knew something had changed in him, deeply, forever. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about her, and somewhere far above, a mother was watching both of them. waiting. The morning brought silence, but it was not peace. Daniel Reeve woke to the sound of his own heartbeat. Sari, the alien girl he had protected for 3 days now, slept curled under his arm. Outside, the dead world of Thalara groaned, with the weight of burned trees, broken stone, and smoke still rising from distant craters. But something was different this morning, too quiet. Daniel crawled to the edge of the shipwreck, his rifle slung over his back. Through his binoculars, he scanned the distant horizon, and then he saw them. Human soldiers, a full recon team, walking carefully across the ruins. Their armor was marked with the Terran flag, their weapons ready. His side, his people. He should have felt relief. But his heart dropped. They weren't alone. On the far ridge, Xerian warriors watching. Their cloaks blended into the ash-covered rocks. And in the middle of it all, between both groups, was him and Sari. Daniel knew one thing clearly now. This wasn't a rescue. This was a trap. He retreated back inside the wreck. Sari was awake, rubbing her eyes. She looked at his face, sensing his tension. "Danger?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded. "Yes." From both sides. She looked afraid but didn't cry. Instead, she reached for the necklace hanging around his neck, his dog tag, and held it tightly. Daniel had a choice to make. He could turn her in, walk straight to the humans, hand her over, and maybe go home. Maybe they'd see it as an act of mercy, or maybe they'd call it treason, or he could run again. But for how long? His legs were sore. He was tired. Supplies, gone. No comms, no backup, only a child who trusted him with her life. He opened a hidden panel in the floor of the wrecked ship. Inside was an old hoverbike, half-broken, rust-covered, but still functional. He loaded Sari onto the back, tied a blanket around her to shield her from wind, and ignited the engine. It roared to life, sending dust flying. Daniel turned the bike toward the dead plains, a forbidden zone between both armies, filled with radiation pockets, lightning storms, and no-man's land ruins. No one dared enter it, which made it perfect. They zoomed away just as the first bullet struck the metal behind them. From the ridge, human troops fired warning shots. "That's Reeve. He's got an alien. Command, confirm target. Do we engage?" From the opposite cliff, Xerian scouts shouted in their own language. "The human is escaping with the royal child. Protect them." 2 sides. 2 armies. 1 confused war. Neither fired directly at him. Not yet. Inside her command chamber, Lady Varea stood watching a live drone feed. She saw Daniel and her daughter speeding into the dead plains. She smiled faintly. "You chose the third path," she whispered. "The one only the brave take." She turned to her aide. "Send my shadow squad. Keep the humans off him. Let him reach the Black Tower." "But my lady," the aide asked. "He's heading into danger." "I know," she replied. "And that's where bonds are truly forged." Daniel drove the hoverbike through shattered valleys and burned tunnels. Storms raged overhead. The sky flashed with violet lightning. Once they were chased by wild beasts that had mutated from radiation. Still, he didn't stop, and Sari never once let go of him. At night, he found an old bunker. They slept inside, cold but alive. She curled into his side, breathing softly. "Why do you stay with me?" he asked quietly. She looked at him and whispered one word in her tongue, then slowly translated, "Safe." That one word broke something in Daniel. All the walls he had, built as a soldier, all the hard rules, all the pain, melted in that moment. He pulled her close. "I won't let them take you." Outside, across the mountains, 2 armies now searched, one for a traitor, the other for a chosen one. And deep in the plains, a tower waited, black, tall, ancient. Not a building, a ritual chamber. It had stood there before either side had come to this world, and fate was drawing them all to it. The Black Tower stood like a needle against the sky, tall, ancient, and untouched by war. No bombs had ever fallen near it. No machines dared approach it. It was older than both human and Xerian technology. Some called it cursed. Others said it was sacred. But to Daniel Reeve, it was the last place left to hide. The hoverbike coughed and died just 50 meters from its base. Smoke hissed from the engine. Daniel lifted Sari into his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. She was tired. So was he. But they had made it. The tower's doors opened with a soft hum as if expecting them. Inside, it was quiet. Cold stone floors, pillars carved with strange glowing runes. The walls hummed with an energy Daniel couldn't explain. The deeper he went, the more he felt watched. Not in danger, just seen. As if the tower was listening to him. High above, in the Xerian flagship, Lady Varea stood on her private deck. The moonlight touched her face, calm but determined. She had dismissed her guards. She had removed her armor. Now she stood in ceremonial robes, dark as the void between stars. Her ship hovered silently over the plains. Below her, the black tower gleamed faintly. "Prepare the descent pod," she ordered. The AI voice responded softly. "Confirmed. Coordinates locked. Are you sure?" "I am," she replied. "I will meet the human myself." Inside the tower, Daniel laid Sari on a soft stone bench. She looked around with half-sleepy eyes. "This place is strange," he whispered. Sari smiled weakly. "Old. Magic." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You believe in magic?" She nodded. "Tower listens." Before Daniel could reply, a pulse of light filled the chamber. A soft wind circled the air. Then the large archway behind him shimmered, and a figure stepped through. Daniel's body tensed. He grabbed his rifle, but then froze. She wasn't armed. She wasn't a soldier. She was regal. Silver blue skin, flowing black robes, glowing violet eyes just like Sari's. A quiet power in her every step. Lady Varea. Sari sat up and gasped. "Mother!" Varea's face, always unreadable, softened for the first time. She walked to her daughter and knelt beside her, gently brushing back her hair. "My heart," she said in her native tongue. "You are safe." Then her eyes lifted to Daniel. They stared at each other. Neither spoke. He was dirty, wounded, exhausted. She was clean, composed, silent. "You came for her," Daniel said at last. "Took you long enough." Varea did not smile, but there was something amused in her stillness. "You could have handed her over," she said. "You could have left her. Why didn't you?" Daniel shrugged. "She was scared. I couldn't just walk away." "There is no just in that choice," Varea replied. "You risked everything, for a child that was not yours, of a race that is not yours, in a war that is not yours." "I didn't care about the war," Daniel muttered. "I cared about her." The silence that followed was heavy. Then Varea rose. "Our people have an old law," she said softly. "Not many speak of it now. Fewer still follow it." "I've heard rumors," Daniel said. "A life bond?" Varea nodded. "If one saves the life of royal blood during battle, they are owed a sacred debt. Not in coin, not in land, but in connection." She walked slowly toward him. "It means, I am bound to you now. As guardian, as protector, as—" She hesitated. "Something more if accepted." Daniel's mind spun. "Wait, are you saying this is marriage?" "In your terms," she said. "Yes." He laughed tiredly. "You're asking me to marry the leader of my enemy's army?" "I'm not asking," she said. "I'm offering because my daughter chose you first. The bond was made the moment she touched your chest and said your name." He looked at Sari, now smiling brightly. "You're serious?" Varea nodded once. "This is not politics. This is law, sacred and binding, but you must choose freely." Daniel stared at her, at the glowing walls, at the girl he carried through fire. He didn't feel like a soldier anymore. He felt like something new. Outside, storm clouds gathered again. The war still raged far away. But inside the tower, under the moonlight that fell through the ancient ceiling, a choice was made. Not of war, but of bond. The stars above Thalara glowed brighter that night, as if even the sky held its breath. Inside the black tower, deep in the ancient ritual chamber, Daniel Reeves stood still. Before him, Lady Varea, commander of the Xerian forces, held 2 shimmering crystal bands. They floated above her palms, glowing softly with a pulsing blue light. These, she said, will complete the bond. Once placed, they cannot be removed. Our lives will be linked, by energy, by oath, and by spirit. Daniel's eyes flicked, between her and the sleeping child Sari resting peacefully nearby. Will she be affected? Varea shook her head. No, but she will be protected, forever, by both of us. Daniel took a breath. He was a soldier. He had never thought about peace, family, or even love. The battlefield was his world. Now a bond was being offered, not with chains, but with choice. And still, a part of him wondered, was this real? You barely know me, he said quietly. Varea stepped closer, her voice low and calm. I've watched your actions, not your words. You cared when no one else would. You protected life when others took it. That is more than I can say for many who've stood beside me for years. Daniel looked at the glowing bands again. And if I say yes, what does it really mean? It means, Varea answered, your life is no longer lived alone. You are claimed by a bond that neither side, human nor Xerian, can break. You are family. He reached out his hand. The first crystal band floated to his wrist and locked in place. It tightened, not painfully, but like a warm grip. The second drifted to Varea's wrist, glowing brighter as it touched her skin. Then the chamber lit up. Symbols carved into the walls for thousands of years began to glow. The air shimmered. Energy circled them like invisible wind. And deep in Daniel's chest, something stirred. Connection. He looked at Varea, and for the first time truly felt her presence in his mind. Not thoughts, not words, just knowing, emotions. Her calm, her strength, her sadness, her hidden warmth, and she felt his too. His loss, his fear, his raw, unshaped kindness. They stood as one. Far away in the Xerian war camp, alarms began to flash. A signal from the ancient tower had activated. A commander turned to his officers. The bond has been made. There was silence. Then one whispered, war is over. On the human side, the signal reached the Terran High Command. Analysts gasped. Their screens showed a pulse of unknown energy from the tower, tied to one of their soldiers, Sergeant Daniel Reeve. His status now read, linked, claimed, protected. Confusion spread across the ranks. Was he kidnapped, or had he done the impossible? Inside the tower, Sari woke and ran to them. She looked at the glowing bands and clapped her hands with joy. Your family now, she said with a bright smile. Daniel picked her up and hugged her close. Looks like I'm not going home after all. Varea stepped beside him. No, she said. You are home now. That night, messages flew between both sides. Warships stopped firing. Troops stood still. For the first time in many years, peace had a face, a human soldier, an alien child, and a warrior queen, bound not by treaties, but by trust. 3 suns rose over Thalara, painting the sky in gold, red, and silver. For the first time in years, there was no smoke, no falling ships, no marching armies, only silence, and the sound of birds returning to the ruined skies. In the heart of the dead plains, inside the Black Tower, Daniel Reeves stood beside Lady Varea, holding little Sari in his arms. Their matching crystal bands glowed faintly. a living sign of the life bond that now joined them forever. He had once been a soldier with no home. Now he was something else. Outside the tower, human gunships hovered in formation, unsure whether to attack or land. Their commanders barked orders. Daniel was still marked AWOL, missing, possibly turned traitor. At the same time, Xerian warriors circled from the east, weapons drawn, but waiting. Tension pulsed in the air. Two sides, one man in the middle. Inside, Daniel faced Viraya quietly. They're both coming. They don't trust us. Viraya gave a small nod. Let them come. Let them see. He looked down at Sari. She gripped his hand tightly. Are you afraid? He asked her. She shook her head. You are both here. I am not alone. Those words hit deeper than any wound he had ever taken. The first group to arrive was the humans. They stepped into the tower, 12 soldiers, armored, guns drawn. Daniel raised his hand slowly. Don't shoot. I'm unarmed. Reeve, the team leader said coldly. Step away from the alien. You're coming with us. But before Daniel could reply, Viraya stepped forward, regal and fearless. Her voice echoed across the chamber. He is not your prisoner. He is my bondmate. My equal, protected under Xerian sacred law. The humans froze. Your what? The leader said. Daniel looked them in the eye. She's right. I chose this. I didn't betray Earth. I saved something bigger than Earth. The soldiers glanced at each other, uncertain. Moments later, the Xerians entered from the other side. A high general approached, glaring at Daniel. Why is a human inside the chamber? This breaks every law. No, Viraya said. It fulfills. The bond is made. The war must end. The Xerian general hesitated. Then his eyes fell on the child. On Sari. He saw her smile as she held Daniel's hand. The general stepped back and lowered his weapon. A hush fell over everyone. Viraya raised her hand. This man, this human, did what many of us forgot how to do. He showed compassion. He carried a child through fire, not because of politics, not because of war, but because it was right. Daniel added, we don't have to keep fighting. We don't have to keep losing. What happened next became legend. The Black Tower, silent for centuries, opened its roof. A beam of light shot into the sky. From both armies, drones and satellites recorded the moment. Across the galaxy, images spread fast, a human and an alien, a soldier and a queen, holding hands with a child between them. Peace had a new symbol. Weeks later, a new treaty was signed, the Thalara Accords, ending the bloodshed between humans and Xerians. It included laws that protected bonded families, interspecies rights, and the rebuilding of war-torn planets. And at the center of it all, Daniel Reeve. He didn't return to Earth. He stayed on Thalara, helping build homes, teaching Xerian children, and raising Sari like she was his own. Viraya, once known only as a warlord, became a leader of unity. Some whispered that theirs was a love born of war, but those who knew the truth said it was born of a child's cry and a man who chose not to walk away.